Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. It means we're brought to you by Immense Networks, Cloud IT Management. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and plenty to do over the course of the next couple of hours. Bummer of news from Saints camp. We'll get to that coming up here. Cam Jordan going to miss a little bit of time. We'll hear some sound from LSU players from yesterday. Ty Benefield met with the media. Braylon Moore met with the media, as well as Sam Levitt. I wrote that up at louisianasports.net. You can check that out right now. Glen West is here at 1:30. He was there to hear all of that. He's been out there at practice and will be this evening as the Tigers put on full pads for the first time Tuesday night, about 6:30. So we'll discuss that tomorrow, but it is coming this evening. We'll talk to Sharif Ishak at 2:30. In the top of hour number 2, I got to talking about LSU's schedule yesterday, and then I thought, why don't I rank those in order of difficulty? My perception of what LSU's getting into this fall, from the easiest game on the schedule to what I perceive to be the most difficult schedule. We'll do that coming up at 2 o'clock. Let's get things started the way we do every day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Look, camp injuries are inevitable. You can't get ready for a football season without some guys getting hurt along the way. When you're college football team, you got 95 guys out there, 100 guys out there at a given point. NFL, similar numbers before you get cut down. You're going to get some guys hurt. And you want to try, being the operative word, try to avoid two things with injuries in camp. Stars, don't want those going down. Nope. Also, bunching. And when I say that, I mean one position getting hit specifically hard. And right now, I wouldn't submit that the Saints are losing star players. Yeah, Brian Brzez's a good player. He's a starting player for you. Do you have an immediate plug-in replacement for that skill set? Maybe not, but is he going to the Pro Bowl this year? Kind of doubt it. And I don't know that Cam Jordan is a star today. He's one of the greatest players in the history of the franchise, but there are some guys that I think are probably more impactful players on that roster. Cam Jordan's probably not a starter on this team. But he did get hurt, and he's going to miss some time. Kellen Moore met with the media earlier today and said, look, it's going to be some time. It may linger into the season. And you realize, like, that's from right now on August the 11th, that is a little bit of time in NFL circles. You're talking about over 4 weeks that he's going to miss time with that hamstring injury. So you've got a little bit of bunching of injuries on your defensive front. Brian Brzez is out for the year. Cam Jordan's out for over a month. Devon Godshaw is dealing with an ankle injury that's lingering a little bit. John Ridgway is dealing with the back injury, and he's being limited in what he can do out there. Like, you're getting one position group being hit harder than others. Now, you haven't had Chase Young or Carl Granderson get hurt, and you went and got Anthony Jennings and Tyree Wilson earlier this year, and you are seeing some of your younger players come back from injury, like Vernon Broughton, and you want to see that. Christian Miller got hurt, we know, coming back, and hopefully he can participate fully moving forward, especially in these joint practices. But it's a position group that's getting banged up. It makes sense. Those are the guys that are in a collision every time the ball snapped. They're going to get banged up. But if you look at Cam Jordan's injury and what that impact means to the Saints for however long it's out, it certainly hurts your proven depth. Because Cam Jordan is not the perennial All-Pro that he once was, not the perennial Pro Bowler he once was, but you know what you're going to get from Cam Jordan when you send him out there. And yes, Chase Young is the alpha in this group. Chase Young is the guy that if you feel like there's a breakout coming, if you think there's a Pro Bowl performer on this Saints defensive front, Chase Young is it. Carl Granderson wasn't as good last year, but in the recent past has been a very impactful player for you off the edge. Cam Jordan's right behind them. And he being out of the picture is going to do a couple of things. One, he's not going to get some reps, but that's not the biggest deal. Number two is it may offer an opportunity for some of these guys that you've brought in to be impactful. It's a 3-4 look, so we're talking about defensive ends and outside linebackers that may be asked to do multiple different things in this Brandon Staley defense, but I want to see more of Anthony Jennings. That's a guy that you made an investment in the offseason, used assets to go get. I'd like to see Tyree Wilson go out there and play, because there's a chance that those guys, as talented as they are and where they are in their career, they're certainly much younger. Maybe they're more impactful players than what Cam could have been. And look, Cam's going to come back and he's going to play. Maybe this is a situation where you get some younger guys to the field a little bit more quickly, and then Cam comes back with, I hesitate to use the term fresh legs, because you're talking about a hamstring injury, which is not what you want. But every rep is getting closer to the end of Cam Jordan's career, right? Let's not use those in August. Let's use those in September. Let's use those in October, which is what we're looking for in a comeback from Cam Jordan. He doesn't need to learn the system. He doesn't need the reps to hone on his craft and develop his game. He doesn't need that. He knows how to play the position. He knows what the scheme calls for. He knows what he's trying to do out there. So I'm bummed out for Cam that he's injured, but I am at this point in the calendar going to look at this injury and go, okay, maybe it's a door cracked for some other guys that maybe could be more impactful. It's not a positive when you have injuries. And certainly, like I laid out at the beginning, the amount of injuries that they've got at one spot here between the defensive tackles and the edge players is more than you want. But right now, the only guy you're looking at who is done is Brzee. You expect Cam back in September. You expect Devon Godshaw to return here pretty quickly. You would assume that John Ridgway's going to be able to play pretty soon. These are not all-pro guys that are banged up. In fact, these are guys late in their career. Devon Godshaw's late in his career. Cam Jordan's late in his career. These guys don't need the day-to-day training camp reps to elevate their position on the roster or develop their game. They need to get healthy. So for those two guys, whatever it takes off your feet to get healthy, come back, and provide. But at the same time, I'm looking at you, Anthony Jennings. I'm looking at you, Tyree Wilson. I'm looking at you, Vernon Broughton. I'm looking at you, Kristen Miller. I'm looking at all these young guys. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, wherever you are in that journey here. Maybe you're on the second team, like a couple of these guys are. It's time for those guys to step up as the door is cracked. For the ones that are healthy enough, you got joint practices with Jacksonville coming up late this week. You've got a preseason coming up. You've got a West Coast trip next week. Big reps in practice to show Brandon Staley, Kellen Moore, this coaching staff, you can help. Part of the story of this Saints season is going to be the development and emergence of some young players. And we talk more about Jordan Tyson. We talk more about Quincy Riley and Jonas Sanker and Kelvin Banks, Taliese Fuaga. We talk about Danny Stutzman. We talk about a lot of these young guys, but the truth is that on the defensive front, need them too. Now, Young and Granderson, with Cam Jordan out, have got this starting position locked up, but that also means they're not playing against Jacksonville in the preseason game. They're not logging intense snaps in the preseason game out west. Now, they're going to be out there for the joint practice. You got to be out there for that, but there are plenty of reps for some young guys to go get. And maybe they would have been available because Cam Jordan wasn't going to take them anyway in his 1,000th training camp. But to me, when I heard this injury news, I went, bummer for Cam, no doubt. But this point in the calendar, this point in his career, not the worst thing I've ever heard. It's not a season-ending injury. It is soft tissue, which you would prefer it not be. But rest him. Let him get healthy. Let him work his way back into shape. And while that door is open for some of these young players that the Saints have invested assets in, the Saints have brought them in, whether it's middle-round draft picks, trades around the draft, you brought these guys in. Now they need to show what they can do. And maybe you build some depth at that position out of the discussion I started this segment with, which was, oh, well, you're down 4 guys on the defensive front. Maybe it adds to your depth. Again, Cam Jordan expected back potentially a couple weeks into the season. I have, candidly, this is just a Hunt thing. It's just kind of the way I've framed this August in my Saints mind, I've got a pessimistic outlook on those first two games anyway. And I would like to have Cam Jordan for them, obviously, but I'm feeling pessimistic about those first two road games. But then you got to hit the ground running when you get home, and maybe Cam Jordan's back for that in week 3 when you come back to the Dome. We'll see. We'll keep you posted as we learn more from Saints camp. And Sharif Ishak is there. He'll talk to us in the second hour. But for right now, unproven, younger defensive linemen, step to the forefront, please. Saints are going to need you. We start with Saints camp today. Our Saints content you can find at Hunt on Saints. You can also find Ross Jackson's work at LouisianaSports.net. Going to shift things over to the LSU side of things for the next 2 segments. Glen West will be here in about 20 minutes. And Ty Benefield is a guy that I think is going to be a star for LSU this year. He met with the media. I'll have some thoughts on that as we move forward. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. I know it's 105 outside. I know you walk right outside and you immediately start sweating. I know that it's first day of school for a bunch of kids. So talking about Christmas doesn't make a ton of sense right now. But maybe for Thanksgiving or Christmas, you've got a huge family gathering coming over to your house. And maybe you've got that bathroom that y'all never use, that you're not even sure if it's functional at this point, or maybe you need to redo things to welcome a lot of people to your home. The time to think about that is not like just after Halloween. The time to think about that is now, so that you can talk to David, determine what it is you want to do, and then you can get that thing done by Halloween so that when that crew comes over for Thanksgiving, when that crew comes over for Christmas, and you're hosting, you've got a functional bathroom that can handle a big gathering. David was talking about it earlier this month. He knows that planning is important when you're dealing with renovations and remodels, and if you want to get a bathroom taken care of, David is happy to do it right now. Just reach out at OneBathAndClosets.com. Get that free consultation. David will work with you every step of the way, and they'll do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online at OneBathAndClosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Every single day, the Hunt Palmer Show brought to you by Lifetime Roofing. They're online at lifetimeroofingla.com. That's lifetimeroofingla.com. And they are so thrilled and proud to be able to offer a lifetime workmanship warranty on their work. It covers the craftsmanship. It also covers the materials, which are backed by Certainty, one of the oldest and most trusted names in building material. You're looking for a new roof. Storm season's here. Maybe you're looking to sell your home and think that might help the resale value. Lifetime Roofing is happy to help you out with that. They can also do gutters. They can do siding. They can do windows, whatever it is on the exterior of your home from the top down that you feel like needs a tune-up or something new. Lifetime Roofing is happy to help you out with that. They can do it statewide. They're based here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide, even into Texas. Their core values, customer service, quality, and integrity. It's Lifetime Roofing. You can check them out online at lifetimeroofingla.com. That's lifetimeroofingla.com. Glen West will be with us coming up here in 15 minutes. Senior writer over there with the group On 3, part of the Bengal Tiger team. Been out there at practice for the last week and change, and we'll chat about that as well as his conversations with the players yesterday. One of those was with Ty Benefield, who I just think is going to be a star in this LSU defense. I don't have a problem hyping him up significantly. One, because he was really, really good at Boise State. Really good at Boise State. Hugely productive with tackles, hugely productive with interceptions, and did it over multiple years. Very, very reminiscent of A.J. Halsey in his time at New Mexico as well as at Houston. And also because whenever you listen to Lane Kiffin or Blake Baker or some of the players talk, they immediately bring Benefield's name up. And I just think he's going to assimilate from playing at Boise State to the SEC seamlessly like Halsey did from the Big 12 to the SEC. And Benefield spoke yesterday with reporters and first detailed his decision to leave Boise State into the transfer portal.
I feel like it was just, I prayed on it and talked with my family, and that was the best decision. Just to have an amazing opportunity to play for a great team like this and have a great, winning culture is super important to me and super important to my family. And I mean, the guys that I met, and stuff, I was just like, yeah, it's amazing.
This is one of those stories to me that makes me pro transfer portal. Now, I have a little bit of an issue with the complete unstructured madness that the portal presents year over year, where you got to go get 45 new football players. and you got to overhaul entire basketball rosters and the whole, like, there's, I think I've been a proponent of it's one transfer makes a lot of sense to me, and it's this instance. He goes to Boise State, he balls out, and the NFL would find him at Boise State. I promise you. If he played 1 year at Boise State, the NFL would find him, and he'd make a team, and he'd be just fine. But he's got an opportunity to come to the SEC and prove himself like A.J. Halsey did, where he became a second-round pick. And I think that's a really good thing. I think it's a really good thing when Paul Skeens can make that move and blow up with the resources LSU has. And Benefield, to me, is part of that discussion. And he talked about his impressions of Louisiana. I think this was after Sam Levitt had talked about his impressions from Louisiana.
Growing up in Canada, I see a lot of ties. You know, there's a lot of French Canadians, and kind of understanding like the French in New Orleans and Louisiana is pretty cool. But I mean, also being in California, kind of getting, used to that black culture and having that, this world, this big black culture world out here is just great. But just, honestly, just the hospitality and the people here, like it's amazing. And I'm so glad I have these great people around me. Like the fans are unbelievable. I've never been defended in a comment section before on TikTok, and like that was the first time. So I was just like, great, like this is awesome. I love these people. So everything's been really good, and it's been a blessing. So I'm right where I need to be, and I love it.
Defended in the TikTok comment section. That's where we are. It's the talking season, y'all. We're talking about TikTok comments at this point. But Benefield has been comped in some senses to Tyrann Mathieu and his playmaking ability, his nose for the ball, playing in the secondary, inching up toward the line of scrimmage, being a versatile athlete. And Tyrann went to LSU to do a little bit of content for his podcast last month, and he spoke with Lane Kiffin, and one of the folks he met and spoke with was Ty Benefield, and Benefield talked about meeting Tyrann Mathieu.
It meant everything. When myself and Tamarcus, met him, it was like we were looking at each other like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like used to use this dude on Madden and see him play all the time, and then now I'm in the flesh talking to him, and we're asking him questions, picking his brain on things and valuable information. It's just such a great memory now that I'll have for the rest of my life. And then as for Coach, speaking on that, it's amazing to have that, and I take that with me every day to continue to push and be the best leader I can for this team.
Now, when I think of Tyrann, I think of an irreplicable football player. I had not, previous to Tyrann, seen anyone play like that, and I have not seen anyone after Tyrann play like that. The ability to go take the football away from people on a routine basis is not something I have ever seen anyone do at any level. And Tyrann did it not like, oh, that was a really cool play, he made that one time. No, he did it like all the time, like most games. I mean, I can just think about going back, him knocking the ball free against Oregon. I can just think about the play he makes against West Virginia, swatting it up in the air. Thinking about the strip sack against Kentucky. He just straight stole one away from an Arkansas receiver in garbage time of that game. I was standing on the field and saw that. It was week after week after week. Not even the punt returns or just making tackles and a lot, just taking the ball away from people. And that's the thing that I think about with Tyrann. And this is not distinctly talking about that with Benefield, but he did the caption on this is I want the ball, and it speaks to his mindset on the field.
The thing that gets me, really going is just making plays for my team, whether it be a tackle, whether it be setting an edge, little things like that. But for sure, that ball, I want that ball. I want to go pick that ball off, any chance that I get, and I will. When that time comes, I'm putting in a lot of work to do that, and you guys will see that.
There's a little confidence there, a little edge there. I've seen LSU defensive back rooms that played with swagger and edge. I've seen them in practice. I do pre- and post-game every single week with a guy that was right there in the middle of it with Brandon Taylor. I used to watch those guys practice. Brandon Taylor, Tyrann Mathieu, Eric Reed, Morris Claiborne, Patrick Peterson, Ron Brooks, Daryl Simon. Like this group of dudes, you could go out on the practice field and sense that this was the baddest position group out there. They talked like it. They carried themselves like it. They played like it. And there's something to that at that position. You can't play DB with any fear. You have to be mentally really strong to go out there and do that, bordering on cocky, because you're going to get beat sometimes. But you got to think, well, next time they got to deal with me again. And I get that sense from hearing Benefield talk the few times that we have back to the spring and now into fall camp. He's got an edge to him. He's really well spoken, and it's a confident eloquence that he brings to it, which I really like. And then, he talked about this defense and being a part of it and what the ceiling is for this group.
The potential of this defense is to be the number one defense, and like we have that ability. It's just more working on the small details, and that's everything. Small things equal big things, and those guys up front are doing a great job. Of course, they're young and they're going to make little mistakes, but from what I've seen, this is one of the most talented young, defensive line guys I've seen, and even the guys around me. Like it's crazy to play with that. It's a ton of fun.
One of the things that stuck out about Benefield is that people on the team and in the coaching staff constantly talk about him and his preparation and the work he puts in and the grind that he goes through to prepare to play at this level. And that's evident when you hear him talk about that, where I like to do the little things. I like to set the edge, and he's talking about preparation, and he's talking about how good this team can be. And this is a guy that you've brought in that has the right stuff about him. And I think that the talent with that is going to take over, and he's going to be awesome. He spoke about the grind of camp and how that's going to bring this group together.
Just sweating and grinding and being tired out there with your brothers, and also the grind of fall camp. Like, we do a lot of football, like a lot. And I mean, just being here you see guys when they're tired, you see guys when they're at their lowest, and it's like you're helping them come up. Like that chemistry is being built every second of every day. So, I love it.
It just sounds like a guy that's fitting in. It sounds like a guy that's taking a leadership role. It sounds like a guy who, on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary, is growing into that. And there's a reason why, and I go back to this, you heard the names that were consistently mentioned over the summer were Ty Benefield and Whit Weeks. Those are the two guys who have kind of led this group. And TJ Dottery is a great leader. They chose him to go to SC Media Days, and he's a first-year player here from Ole Miss. You've got some veterans that have been around a little bit, and Don McKinley and Devon Keys and Tylen Singleton and DJ Pickett and PJ Woodland. But there's a huge influx of new talent, new players that are going to have to take a leadership role, and it seems like Benefield's absolutely done that on the defensive side of the ball. And on the offensive side of the ball, we talked about it yesterday, it's Levitt that got to do it, and now Benefield's gotten a chance to see Sam Levitt out on the field.
He's an unbelievable leader. I love the confidence and swagger that he has, and also just his big play ability, like to make things happen. Like, it's definitely really, really good to have that as a quarterback, and I trust him tremendously. I mean, me and him talk about things that he sees from me after practice, and I tell him things that I see from him. So I like that relationship, and he's going to be great.
I like that too. It all sounds good. Look, man, it's talking season, and I'm not going to go overboard here on leadership and on chemistry and things that I don't really know because I'm not there. All I can do is take their words and what they're saying. And I told y'all last year at this time that I really liked the stuff that these guys were talking about. I told y'all after the Clemson game that I really thought this group had it all figured out. And look, we saw what happened. So I'm well aware of that, and that everybody's undefeated right now, and everybody thinks their team is awesome, and everybody loves their quarterback, and everybody's new transfers are ingratiating themselves well. And that's just a common refrain around the country with everybody. It's the same in NFL training camps, same in college football. The high school teams all think they're going to be awesome this year. That's the nature of August. But I'll tell you this. With that guarded mindset of understanding how wrong I was last year and understanding that everybody feels good about this, I'm willing to bet on number 2 on defense. I think Ty Benefield is going to be a star. I think he's going to be a first-team All-SEC player. I think he's going to be an All-American. I think he's going to make huge plays. I think he's going to help LSU win games. And I think that he's a difference maker at the safety position, and you're going to see that. I would not be surprised at all if he was a top 50 pick in next year's NFL draft, because he fills out the uniform the way you expected he would when you go out there and watch him in practice. We'll see him in full pads today. He says the right things. The people that talk about him say the right things. There are some questions and concerns I have on this LSU team. There are some transfers that I'm not as high on as most people are. Benefield's not one of them. I think he's going to be absolutely exceptional for LSU this year, and I like hearing him talk. I think he's about the right things, and I think that'll show itself over the course of the fall. It'll be 1 year and out for Ty Benefield here at LSU, but I anticipate it'll be a pretty impactful one for the Boise State transfer. Glen West, senior writer at Go24, on 3, part of the Bengal Tiger team, will join us coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com is the website, FabryChevrolet.com. Want a 2026 Chevy Silverado 1500? You can have one at 0% APR financing for 5 years plus no monthly payments for 90 days. That's now until August 31st, so we're about halfway through the month. Get by over the course of the month of August and get those great savings on Chevy Silverados. But it's not just the Chevy trucks, the GMCs as well. you can get awesome deals. GMC Sierra 1500s, 2.9 APR for 72 months, plus an additional $1,500 in allowance throughout the month of August. Chevy Silverados, GMC Sierras, great financing options and great specials that go with those. And look, maybe you don't want a new vehicle. Maybe you're looking for a pre-owned vehicle. They got pre-owned vehicles that will fit any budget. All you got to do is go to FabryChevrolet.com and click the pre-owned tab. You can sort make and model. You can sort by price. You can sort by mileage. It's all there, and every car that's on the lot on Highway 61 in St. Francisville is online at FabryChevrolet.com. Fabry Chevrolet GMC. They're online at FabryChevrolet.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Tuesday shows every single week, brought to you by Immense Networks Cloud IT Management. Need a partner for your information technology? Immense, happy to help you out with that. Baton Rouge based. If you're between 50 and 100 employees, great spot for Immense to help you out. Check them out online at immense.net. That's immense.net. Glen West writes it up for the Bengal Tiger, part of the team over there on 3. With us on Tuesdays, joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glenn, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Hunt. How about yourself?
Doing just fine. Let's go to the defense first. I'm curious what your thoughts are on what you've seen from the defensive tackle rotation, from just looking at those guys out there and understanding what that depth chart could look like. Everyone's well aware we're getting about 12 minutes at a time and they haven't put full pads on, but just an overarching view of defensive tackle right now.
Yeah, I appreciate the disclaimer there because there is only so much you can learn in about 12 minutes every day, but especially when they're doing the same stuff. But I do think that we've seen kind of a pretty consistent, steady 4. I would say. I think Deuce Gerald's, the freshman, has pretty consistently been working in with the first team rotation there at defensive tackle, which is great to see from a momentum standpoint. He's been able to carry that over from the spring. I think if we had to pencil in a starter right now for Clemson in week 1, I would assume that he's getting one of those spots, and that's really impressive for the true freshman to show that here so early in his career. And then next to him, it's been a pretty steady stream of Stephylon Green, Malik Blockton, Richard Anderson, the other 5-star defensive lineman on the inside. So I would say you start probably with those 4, and then it's going to get into your Dominic McKinley, Brandon Brown, Sean Washington grouping. So I do think that LSU has a pretty solid 4 that they're going to look at to rotate, but I do think as many of those guys as you can get as possible to be a part of that rotation early in the season is the best case scenario. So hopefully somebody like McKinley can also work his way in there.
Uman Mielen and Ross have been the first team edges since the first day of spring. Do you have a third?
I would say right now, Lamar Brown. I mean, I do think that they've given him a fair shake, at least from what we've been able to see during these individual drills. I actually spent some time watching Lamar Brown working with Coach O in individual drills yesterday. So I do think that they're very high on what he can become. I think Dylan Carpenter is another player that makes a lot of sense there as kind of a third or fourth rotating edge. But I do think that right now it does look like Uman Mielen and Ross have a pretty firm grip there at the 2 edge spots, but I do think that there is going to be some room for rotation with Lamar Brown, Dylan Carpenter, maybe a Jalen Brown, or maybe even a Jaden Breaker, who's recently made the move over to edge from linebacker, one of the best athletes on the team and has put on some good weight over the offseason. Maybe he's able to quickly pick up the position and earn some playing time there as well.
I spoke with Ty Benefield yesterday. I just spent about 15 minutes going through that audio and kind of what I think of him. What did you make of his time with y'all yesterday, and then what you've seen with him on the field?
Yeah, really impressive guy. I mean, just, he's obviously very experienced now in the college game with his 3 years at Boise State. There's probably not a whole lot that he hasn't seen in college already. It's just going to be about how quickly can he make that jump to the SEC. And I think from everything we've heard, everything we've seen, he's going to be able to do that really, really well here. And what's, I would guess, is probably his one and only season in Baton Rouge. I would expect him to be a really heavy piece to this team from a playmaking perspective. I think think one of his final answers that he was asked about, just kind of a broad, what are we going to see from number 2 on the field when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, and he was very, he says he's going to be a very aggressive playmaker. He's somebody that spends a lot of time looking at film and looking at opposing offenses and the best way to attack them in terms of getting interceptions, tackles for loss, coming off the edge, and just being a playmaker. And I think that's what you're going to see from him more than anything this year. He's got that really limitless range at the safety position, and I think LSU is going to use him in that way.
Glen West is our guest, senior writer over there with the Bengal Tiger, part of the team on 3 with us on Tuesdays. Shift over to the offensive side. Y'all talked with Sam Levitt about a lot of different things yesterday. What stood out to you?
Yeah, I just think the quickness that he's been able to pick up the offense is something that he's taken a lot of pride in. He's taken a lot of pride in obviously his health and making sure that he's 100%. And it sounds like that he's been 100% for a few months now, which is really good to see. Probably means that over the summer he was getting in every, all the work possible with these receivers. And, certainly with a guy like Trey'Dez Green at tight end, who's probably going to be one of his more highly targeted wide receivers or pass catching options in this offense. So it sounds like he's done all the right things. He seems very confident that he is going to be able to fit well into this system and scheme. And I think it was, on paper, it was going to be a seamless fit. It was just always going to be about what kind of work he could do this offseason. And judging on what he said, judging on what Coach Kiffin has said in the past, several weeks and really going back to the spring, he's really put a lot of emphasis on being able to learn the playbook and know this offense, even when he hasn't been able to maybe do as much on the field. So I think he's gotten a good head start. And now, when the pads come on later this week, we'll get a chance to see, I don't know if we'll get a chance to see, but he'll get a chance to see, just kind of how well he works in an 11-on-11 setting.
Yeah, we probably won't be seeing much of that at all. And I think that's been, that's been made fairly abundantly clear. Let's talk about the pass catching options beyond Trey'Dez Green. Do you have a thought on a top 2 or 3 right now?
I do. I think, again, judging on what we can see in these first couple of periods of practice, it does feel like that he has a pretty good connection with Jace Brown, the Kansas State transfer. I think he's been a pretty consistent receiving option for them. They've put out a couple of videos already on social media of him and Levitt connecting on some really cool passes. And so I would say Jace Brown's up there. I would still say Winston Watkins is going to be a really heavy option to use in the slot. I think Jackson Harris is going to be a great vertical threat for them. So I don't think there's been too much in terms of just surprises so far at the wide receiver room. I think Malik Elzy is maybe the one that can kind of be thrown into that category. I think the first week or so, Levitt was getting a lot of work in with Elzy this week, or at least to start this week. It looks like Phillip Wright and Eugene Wilson are getting a little bit more looks and reps with Sam Levitt there during individual drills. So I do think that there's a group of maybe 3 or 4 guys behind the initial 3 that will, get some opportunity early in the season, and just you'll see who kind of sticks. But I do feel pretty confident with the Jace Brown, Winston Watkins, Jackson Harris trio. I think that's probably 3 that stand out to me. I'm
going to list the entire schedule 1 through 12 in 20 minutes. I'm not going to ask you for 12. I'll just ask you for 1. What's the most difficult game on LSU's schedule?
That's a great question. I mean, I would lean Ole Miss just because of everything that's going with that, and just honestly, whoever wins that game is going to just have such a euphoric feeling. It's going to be really important for them to, make sure that they're up and ready for that next week's game, because in LSU's case, that's Texas A&M at home, and that's going to be a really big one. I'll say Texas at home. I think that's probably your most difficult opponent in terms of just strength of the team and where you could be at that point in the season. If both of those teams are playing for something in mid-November, I think that could be the most difficult. But you get them at home, which is a really good thing as well. So I'll lean Texas, but I do think Ole Miss is going to be mighty tough in Oxford.
All right, last question. It is August the 11th. There are 4 players listed on the basketball roster.
I thought you would sneak one in.
Where are the players? I needed players. I went on like a 3-minute rant yesterday at the end of the show. I didn't say that LSU doesn't have a plan. I just want the plan. I'm tired of being in silence. Do they have any players?
Listen, I've been texting people in the program too, with the exclamation part. We need answers. We need something. It's been 2 months now since the last announcement, quote unquote. So, look, I think they're going to have a plan. Like, I don't see a scenario here where Will Wade enters a season and they don't have, but only 6 or 7 players or whatever. Like, they're going to have some bodies here. And I do think that they have a plan that they feel comfortable with. And when they want to roll out those names, trust me, I will be the first one to my computer to relay that information when we get it. But they keep things pretty close to the vest this offseason. I will respect that. Like, they have not leaked out a whole ton within the program about what their plans are. And so I'll be very, very curious, just as you are, to see what that looks like. And look, first day of school is August 24th. I would hope that we have something by August 24th that's more definite in terms of who's going to be on this team. But I know that they have a plan. I know they're going to roll it out here hopefully pretty soon. And that's all I got for you at this point.
I'll tell you what happened yesterday, okay? I got a text message that my credential for the season for football for the radio was available. So I had to go to the studio to get it inside the stadium. So I'm getting mine. I'm getting Jacob Hester's, who does color and is obviously here. Gordy Rush, who does sideline, is here. I get Haldane's. He's a producer. So I got to get a whole crew to bring back here. Well, I go up there, and I knew I was going to walk by Kent Lowe's office. And I was going to start banging on his door like, Kent, I need some players. But he wasn't there, so I did not get any information.
Well, I texted Kent yesterday, pretty much the exact same thing, and he says, "I'm waiting for you guys too. I want some answers from you guys." Okay. So it seems Kent's in the dark right now too, but we'll see.
We shall. See you out there tonight, Glenn. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Hunt.
Glenn West, senior writer over there with the Bengal Tiger, part of the team on 3. I was going for Kent's office. Not that Kent has all the answers, and not that Kent was going to tell me anything. But he is the sports information director. He is in charge of putting together the releases that go out once they get signatures and get guys enrolled. I was going to go right to the source right there, but he wasn't there in his office. So I just picked up the credentials and walked on out. Maybe another day. Maybe if I go get my parking pass another time. Or if I just see Kent in the grocery store or something. I need answers. We need players. Can't go out there with 4. I got a text from Haldane yesterday when I did that segment. He goes, Coach Norman Dale, my team's on the floor. I don't want to play a team. I don't want to play a year like that. I would like a full requisite number of players, but we just don't have that information quite yet, do we? I want it, but we'll see. We're sticking with football right now. I will tell you all this as a tease for our next segment. I went on Clemson Radio this morning, did a show with Faxon Childress, who's been on this show, does an awesome job. We had a great conversation mainly about LSU. He said something that gave me a little bit of confidence. I will tell y'all what that was and what I extrapolated from it when we close out the hour next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services, BoudreauxElectrical.com, BoudreauxElectrical.com. It's been a quiet hurricane season. There have been a few in a row, and I'm not trying to jinx anything. We know what this time of year can bring around here, and hopefully there's 5 more quiet ones coming right at us. But it's better to be prepared than to be reactive, right? The last thing you want to do is think about that Generac home standby generator from Boudreaux's Electrical when your power's been knocked out and your house is hot and dark. Be proactive. Call the local company. They can send a local team out to get you a quote, send a local team out for installation, and for the duration of your ownership of that Generac home standby generator, we'll be able to monitor your generator locally and come out and do the maintenance locally. Wouldn't you rather call a local team to deal with a mechanical issue than try to go through the big box store and see if you can get anybody in Atlanta to pick up the phone? Boudreaux's Electrical Services. They've been local here in South Louisiana for 40 years. 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562. Or the Gonzales location, 225-300-9389. It's Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Online at BoudreauxElectrical.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
The Highland Insurance Group is online at HighlandIG.com. That's HighlandIG.com. Jonathan Carbo and his team happy to help you out with your group and employee benefits. If you're a business owner or CFO, you're in charge of the benefits for your company, and you've just felt the pain of those increased renewals year over year. Maybe you just had one. Maybe you've got one coming up that you're dreading. That's the case. Contact the Highland Insurance Group. They are an independent broker, and they've got relationships with multiple carriers, and they can get you a second look. They've had some success, especially with one company that continues to up rates. They can find you another option for your employee health care, your dental, your vision. It's important. They know that in terms of attracting talent to your organization and certainly keeping it. You want to be able to keep your employees insured. The Highland Insurance Group can help make sure that's a possibility. They're not a magic bullet. They can't come in and knock 20% off, but they can provide other options. So contact Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at highlandig.com, highlandig.com. And our Tuesday show is brought to you by Mintz Networks Cloud IT Management. I was on the phone earlier this morning with Clemson Radio, my guy Faxon Childress, and he wanted to catch up on LSU, and we went through the LSU roster, and this may be reaching. It may not be, but it certainly was a potential positive. When he was going through the defensive line for LSU, and it's clear that he's been reading up on LSU practice reports, been watching some preview content and whatnot. He was familiar with a lot of the players and where they came from and classifications, and he was talking about the defensive line. And this is a guy that's covered Clemson for a number of years, and said, now, this has got to be a really talented defensive front, because you're talking about some guys running ahead of Clemson transfers to Phylon Green. And again, I might be reading a little bit, but I could tell from the voice inflection of the question to me that he felt like he was surprised LSU might have a couple of defensive tackles that would beat Phylon Green out. Y'all have heard me talk about LSU's defensive front now dating back to the spring. And I will continue on this until I'm either proven right or wrong, but this is the way I'm going to feel unless something changes. I'm a little bit concerned with the veteran talent level at defensive tackle. That's Dominic McKinley, that's Phylon Green, that's Malik Blockton, that's Sean Washington. That's a lot of these older players that I just don't put in the category right now of Michael Brockers and Benny Logan, of Glenn Dorsey and pick your next guy, of Kyle Williams and Chad Lavallee, the dominant LSU defenses. And I realize that's a mouthful. These are some of the great players of the last 25 years. But those are the great teams of the last 25 years. And I just feel like if you're going to field a great team, you need to have dudes at the point of attack, even in this spread system. And I just don't know if I see that. And look, I don't feel like that's an out of bounds comment to make, because we're sitting here talking about going to the playoffs, right? Aren't we talking about going 10-2, going 11-1? Aren't we talking about making the playoffs? So I don't think it's out of bounds to compare positionally to the LSU teams of the last 25 years that would have made the playoffs if they were 12 teams, or did in the case of the ones I just rattled off. And I just have kind of been on Blockton and Green and McKinley and those guys, not to suggest I think they're huge weaknesses of LSU's. I just don't see a dominant player in that group. And that was not the inference that I was making, that these guys on Clemson radio thought that Green was a great player. It just sounded like they thought, well, that's a guy that was good enough to play here, and I figured he would start for LSU. He's not. And that made me think, okay, maybe this guy did a really nice job at Clemson. It's hard to tell with defensive tackles because they don't put up statistics. If I've got a guy who had 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns receiving, and I can turn on the highlight tape and watch him, high point balls and make one-handed catches, like, okay, I get why this guy's a great player. I can see Sam Levitt highlights. I can look at Ty Benefield's statistics and go, that's a ton of tackles and a ton of interceptions and a lot of TFLs. Defensive tackles don't live off statistics. They live off disruption. They live off technical ability. They live off holding up blocks so other guys can make plays. And so these guys don't have 8 or 10 sack seasons to their name. These guys aren't first-team All-Americans. These guys don't have 13 TFLs from last year. They're statistically not eye-popping. But maybe these guys are good players, and maybe Deuce Geralds and Richard Anderson are just freaks of nature. I left the door open for that yesterday or last week in my comments when I was concerned that there were 2 defensive tackle starters that were both true freshmen. But I noticed in the host's voice this morning that he was a little bit surprised that LSU had guys that were going to beat out Stefan Green. And that may not be true. Stefan Green may start the game against Clemson. I'm not here to tell you that just a couple of 12-minute unfull padded practices gave me LSU's entire depth chart. That's not the point. We're all aware of this, but it's all we have to watch. I can't analyze what I can't watch. So what I can watch is when they go through the shell drills, who's running with the first team. And I know that Whit Weeks and TJ Daugherty and DJ Pickett and PJ Woodland and Ty Benefield and Prince William Amiel and Jordan Ross are on the first team. And when they're all out there at one time and true freshmen are out there with them at defensive tackle, I'm going, well, that looks like two defensive tackles who are running with the first team. They might have done the rep 15 minutes later after we left and two different guys were in there. And they're just looking. Could easily happen. But I gathered a little bit of confidence from the way that the Clemson guys spoke about Stefan Green, and maybe it suggests that LSU did bring in starting level players at defensive tackle that are just in a fight for their job with precocious young freshmen who can really, really, really play. We'll see. We'll find out. It still remains one of the chief areas of my concern. But just for a moment this morning, on the air with Clemson Radio, I went, okay, I like the way that sounded. We'll see. We still got a few more weeks of talking season to amble through. We'll see the Tigers tonight in full pads for the first time for 12 minutes at 6:30, and we'll have a report up at LouisianaSports.net. We'll talk about it on tomorrow's show. Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Immense Networks Cloud IT Management. They're online at immense.net. Cybersecurity, not something that people think about all the time until you really need to, and it can get really problematic and really expensive. Immense monitors your system 24/7 to make sure you're taken care of for that perspective. They're proactive, not reactive. If you're a local company, you're 50 to 100 people, that's the sweet spot for Immense. Let them come in and monitor your system, work with your IT. It's Immense Networks. They're online at immense.net, immense.net. What's LSU's toughest game? I'm ranking them 1 to 12 after we pause for Sports Center. Hour 2 coming next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First, let me tell you about Marucci. Online at maruccisports.com, maruccisports.com. School is cranking up. It is football season. A lot of folks putting the bats, balls, and gloves away for the summer into the fall. If that's not the case in your house, you've got a youth baseball player that wants to continue to work on his or her game. Well, you've got that option at Marucci. Become a member to the Hitter's House. You get that key card. It gives you access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Want to pop in right after school? You can do it. Want to pop in right after mom or dad gets off of work? You can do it. Take some swings, work on your game in the offseason at the Hitter's House at Marucci. You can also take a tour. See where the official bat of Major League Baseball is made. 1,200 of them every single day. Carved up, shaved down, stained, sent off to the best players in the world. You can see that process firsthand, and you can learn the story of how they became the official bat of Major League Baseball. It's all right there, our friends at Marucci.